MS in Computer Security from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, as well as a BS in Mathematics, a BS in Computer Science, and a minor in Economics from the University of Pittsburgh. So thank you so much for joining us, Chad, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. Audio, video, everything's good?
Yes, everything's working great.
Sweet. So I titled this talk for the older people, I guess, watching, "You Are the Weakest Link." There used to be a show where that was the mantra, but it's generally about the human aspect of cybersecurity. So how humans go about exploiting the humans instead of the computers themselves, and how this fits into the whole security infrastructure of your enterprise. So first, a little bit about me that wasn't gone over, that we didn't go over in the introduction. So for those of you who didn't watch the last talk, new talk, who dis? So my background, I got into computers for kind of nefarious reasons. So I'm a hacker turned good guy, I guess, and I also have a lot of hacker friends. Some of those turned good guys, some of those are still doing very interesting things with their life. So I get a very unique perspective, I think, on the world of cybersecurity. I'm a knower of a few things computer related. So like Mirabelle said, I got a PhD in this, and I've really been into computer science since childhood. So I've learned quite a bit along the way and got to meet some really interesting people. And the outcome of all of these interests in my career path was that I founded this cybersecurity company that is trying to rectify a lot of the problems that our society faces today. So first, what the heck are we talking about today? What is social engineering? My definition of it, you can take it, if you take it or leave it, is manipulating humans to do things for you, typically with ill intent. So you're trying to get somebody to divulge information or do something that they otherwise shouldn't do, but you kind of, the word schmoozing, right? You kind of schmooze them and then they'll, you can get your way. And who is a social engineer? Technically everybody is, right? So I have this meme here, but like, sometimes you're at Chipotle and you're like, oh, can I just get a little extra meat? And then you don't get charged for it. Like that was social engineering, right? It's a pretty benign act of social engineering, but you look sincerely hungry and the person wanted to help you out, even though they're only supposed to give you that exact one scoop of meat and you got with a little bit more meat. And this sort of goes on in society all day, every day at varying effects. So what the heck does this have to do with computers? Why are we talking about Chipotle? It is lunchtime though, so I think that that seems well suited. So this is one of a really great comment that comic from XKCD that came up when I was starting my career and decided to be a professional computer scientist. So I got really into crypto and, oh my God, we're gonna save the world. So on the left is, what should happen? Oh my God, his laptop's encrypted. Whatever will we do? Blast, my plan is foiled. And then on the right is what actually happens in real life. It's like, hey, just go drug him and hit him with this wrench until he tells us the password, and then we'll decrypt his laptop. And this is actually not far from the truth as far as how companies get compromised. Some of the world's biggest exploits have just been, social engineering and not necessarily technical sophistication. So there's some really cute words for social engineering. The goal of all of them is to trick the person to do what you want, and that that they don't realize they're doing bad. So we've all heard of phishing. So this is where you send somebody an email that looks like something that it's not, and you get them to type in their bank account or their password or something. They've really gone too far with the words. So now there's apparently vishing and smishing. So vishing is video or voice phishing, and smishing is SMS phishing. I think the words are ridiculous, but they sound really funny, so I wanted to include them. Then there's actually spearfishing, which I'll go over, is like a much more targeted attack. Baiting, this is kind of the thing where you just put something out there like, hey, sign up for this website and you get $1 million or something like that. And you kind of bait people into giving you information. It's like, oh, well, when you sign up, I need this info. And then it actually goes into the physical realm quite a bit. The only two I put on here is tailgating and piggybacking, just because I think people are probably familiar with these. So this is, I'm going into a locked door, and right before the door closes, somebody else comes up and comes in behind me, or they just don't have access, but they have a big box in their hand, and the same thing at Chipotle, right? Just like people are generally good, and he's like, oh my God, can you help me open the door? I can't get into the lab. And they'll boop, beep their card and help you in. And you go in and steal whatever you want or do whatever you want to do. So through all my talks, I like to put ourselves in the adversary's shoes. In some instances, I've actually been there, so it makes more sense to me. But I think it's good to actually see the attack from the attacker's side, to kind of understand what their motives are and how they think. So if we're going to deploy a social engineering attack, what makes a good attack? Typically, urgency is a very critical factor. This is something that needs to be done right now. You can't wait till next week, because you might talk to your boss by next week, and that's going to foil my plan. You have to look legitimate. You have to be confident, and it has to be an unsuspecting victim. If you come in and someone has their guard up, they're going to pop you, right? Like, they know you're coming. So this has to be, there's kind of an art to it where you really catch people off guard and you really seem genuine and confident, and then you can get them to do what you want. And I'll go through now in details what I mean by that. So first, let's go phishing. This is the famous one. Everyone's heard of it. I guess not famous, the most popular. The general idea is you're going to trick a user to giving you sensitive information, maybe their password. I want to steal your Gmail password. I want to steal your Amazon password. Maybe your financial info. That's a popular one. Get your bank account and withdraw some funds. Or I want to steal your identity. I want you to give me your social security number and all of your history so that I can go get a loan. Recently, it was all the, I forget ECC, but the unemployment, I forget the exact acronym, but those were rampant with identity theft. So generally, phishing attacks are, you go phishing for anything. These are large scale attacks with no specific target. You're just going to blast emails or blast SMS messages or whatever, just out there in the world. And you only need a couple people to bite to make this worth it, right? Sending emails effectively free, and you get a couple people for $1,000 here and there. And that's a pretty good payday for hitting enter. So these are typically untargeted. They don't have any real goal in mind other than exploit whomever. Maybe they want to steal money. Maybe they just want to sell your data. They'll steal your credit card data and then they'll go sell it. Or maybe they want to gain access to corporate assets. So this is like, oh, I'll send it to every company in Santa Barbara, and a couple of people clicked it and installed my malware, and now I can poke around at their corporate network and kind of see what's going on in there. Maybe I ransomware them. Maybe I steal their money when I get on their foes account, all that kind of stuff. But this one's kind of been beaten to death, so I don't want to emphasize this too much, and it's not that interesting and exciting, but just give you the general gist of what's going on, why people are doing this. As a quick sidebar, a lot of people are worried about credit card theft, right? Oh, I'm going to get my credit card stolen. I get my credit card stolen every year, not on purpose. I'm not sure how exactly. It's kind of annoying, but the interesting thing is I don't care. And the reason I don't care is that credit card number theft is very easy, but monetizing it is really, really hard. So for one, Chase seems to do a really good job at detecting it. It just, I get a text, hey, are you in Mexico right now? No, I'm not. Okay, new card's in the mail. But moreover, once you withdraw money, right, you now have a paper trail to you, typically by an address or something, to get the goods that you purchased. And this ultimately becomes the demise of most hackers. So what they have to do is they'll get what they call the mules. So I'll send you 2 televisions, and then I get 1 television, and then the police come to you and you don't know who I am. But kind of an interesting thing in this whole scheme of that, the stealing of the card is not the hard part. Where you have to get really clever as a criminal is how do you then get the money out of that card? And in fact, back in my hacking days, I used to sit in channels that people would give me access to where they're just credit card numbers literally scrolling up the screen, like as fast as you could see. You had to click to stop the scroll bar to even read them, just as many as you'd ever want. And they're just kind of free for the taking within the communities I used to be in. So back to the talk. So now let's look at spearfishing. This one's far more interesting. So the idea of spearfishing is they're much more targeted, they're much more sophisticated, and they can cause a lot more damage, be it financial damage, or like you've seen like the Sony attack, those kind of things, where you can just cripple a company if you get the right person and get the right malware installed on their systems. So to give you an idea of a spearfishing attack, I want to walk you through one that we actually did. So Say you want to make a splash at your startup pitch. You're a promising cybersecurity company, finishing your PhD, you're coming out of UCSB, and you want this presentation to be amazing. So you decide to phish every single person in the competition to sort of amplify the point of your product and say like, hey, this really is that easy and you really are susceptible. Because I think a lot of people, when I tell them about this, have this mentality of like, yeah, but you'd never get me. I'm like, okay, well, you're thinking of these like phishing attacks are just, I spit out there, hey, I'm a Nigerian prince spelled wrong and I'm going to give you $1 million. This is not one of those. So I'll walk you through exactly how we did this, and we were very successful. So a perfect case point of a spearfishing attack. So first, you have to pick your entry points. So if you're going to phish these people, what looks legitimate? Let's go with that first. And what would they actually, type their data into? I can't just send them a random link. So in our startup program here at UCSB, we have it's called Trusted Peer. And it looks like this platform over here on the left. And then you'll see when you sign in at the top right, it lets you select your UCSB Net ID or your Google ID. At the time, this is before UCSB went to Google Workspace. So it was just your UCSB Net ID. So it was very common practice to click this and have your username and password pop up. You literally had to do this for class. And if you're participating in the competition, you had to be involved. You see like mentors apply here, students apply here. So we thought this was a good one. It was very targeted. Everyone was already communicating over this. There was actually a chat program in there, and this is how messages were being dispelled about the competition. So step one, let's become them. So, right, the whole point is I need to send you a convincing email that looks like trustedpeer.org. So we actually purchased the trustedpeer.org. I hope none of this puts me in jail, but I think it's a good case in point. It was all in good fun. So $9.99, what a deal, right? That's going to help on slide 3 of my presentation. And then we added all the security things, so whatever you needed. You want a little lock in the top left. Your emails were DKIM signed and SPF aligned, all this good stuff. So you check any security checks, it's all going to be there because we own the trustedpeer.org, right? So we can make it look like whatever we want. Any security mark, you got it. The only difference is ours says the, and the real one doesn't say the, which I don't think many people would think twice about that. In fact, they did not. So once we purchased the domain, we set up our email. So this is a fake email from us looking like it's from Dave, the head of the program that we sent to ourselves and we were testing it. Dave and I sent me a message, Authenticate is my favorite team, heart, because that's how professors speak. And you can see all the security things in the trust right. Sorry. It's signed by the trusted peer. It's got a little lock. It says it's even important according to Google Magic. Like I should pay attention to this. It's sent from this from address. And just to give you perspective, let's look at the real one. This is a real email sent days earlier from Dave. So I'll switch back and forth so you can tell they actually are different, but I would wager that you would never know the difference. So the other step was to get the emails of our targets, right? So it's not just having all of this stuff, but we need to actually know your email. We can't just know that you're in the competition. Fortunately, we knew everyone that we wanted to phish, and finding their emails, there's these great resources at every university and every enterprise on earth. You can just check the directory. Hey, I'm gonna type in my victim's name if they're a student. Oh, there's a faculty and staff one. I'm gonna get their email. And then we just got this huge list of emails. And then clone the login page. So our page, when you come to it, would look exactly like Trusted Peer, verbatim, nothing different. And when you click this, it would be the exact login page. Only difference is it would not autocomplete. So you'd actually have to type in your username and password. And then we sent this out the night before. Urgent, important information for MVC finals tomorrow. I think the times are 8:30 p.m. Like, oh my God, we're all super stressed. They're trying to put on this event. We're super stressed because we're competing in it. Everybody clicks it. Everyone types in their email, and we send them this message. So we did this in a very responsible way. We used JavaScript. Like, there's no way we could have got their password. It was all client side on their end, but as they started typing, we would then forward them here and say like, hey, this is just a demonstration of what spear phishing looks like and how critical it can be. And in most cases, you may not even know you got phished, because we could have easily taken their password, redirected them, poof, off they go, and actually stolen their password. But we don't want to go to jail, so we opted not to do that. So email is like, I think, a vector that we're all pretty accustomed to. There's also phone scams. So these are, again, like larger criminal enterprises with differing levels of sophistication. So there's the robocalls that I get like 5 times a day. I'm sure you've gotten quite a few of them. Most of them, I don't understand why I can't just get a human to record their voice, where it's like the robot, this is the IRS calling, blah, 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 blah. So those are pretty low sophisticated attacks, but they do get people, which is kind of shocking. It's another one of those instances where like, if no one fell for it, they wouldn't do it. But some people are falling for it. They tend to target elderly people who really don't understand the technology. And in fact, really young people have also been targeted recently. They seem to also be more susceptible, more gullible, more trusting. I guess us in our mid years are just, disgruntled and hate the world, don't trust anybody. But then there's actually these targeted calls that try to extort a lot of money. So these are way different. They do their research, similar to spear phishing. You can like really, really zero in on people and get a lot of details out of them. I've been asking myself this question a lot, like, why do these scams still exist, right? It seems like we should be able to just like authenticate who the call is coming from. And then if we all agree that's a bad person, we block that number and they can't call. Unfortunately, that's not the case. A lot of the phone networks were made on like dial tones and stuff. So we've kind of just been building off of that infrastructure. A lot of the protocols didn't have authentication in mind. You used to be able to like make long distance phone calls by taking a Captain Crunch whistle, like, and then it would unlock. There was the proper tone for a long distance phone call. And back in the day, there were these frackers, they call them, that could get long distance calls that way. So, at least we've come a long way from there. You can't just whistle into your phone and, get free service. But our phone numbers are now scattered everywhere. This is kind of because computer authentication has failed. So the only way that like websites have to authenticate you is to use your phone number. And then because of this, you're used to typing your phone number everywhere. Those companies get compromised. You've kind of already leaked your phone. So it's no longer the case where it's like, your close friends know your phone number. We now use it as part of our like digital identity. Also, phone number spoofing is absolutely trivial. This also blows my mind how easy this is. There's literally an app for it called spoofcard.com. You can go download this app. You can even like augment your voice with this app. You can spoof your number to be whatever you want. When I learned about how easy this was, I remember being at a conference. I kept calling my friend from the number 1337, which means leet in hacker speak. And he just had like a ton of missed calls. And then finally, 5 days later, he like fessed up. He's like, oh my God, I was so freaked out. Look at all these missed calls. It's like, I know, that was me. And then the other thing, the laws and law enforcement just seem kind of ill-equipped for this, right? So like, I would love to report these people and know like justice was served. Like this guy called me and it was, in the middle of a meeting and I was frustrated and like, this is ridiculous, arrest this person. And like, I don't even know how to do that. It's too easy for them to hide. There's no way to really like drive in on that. So I don't know. Hopefully they figure it out soon, but unfortunately, this is where we are. So this is a brief story. I know someone who knows someone, but this is one of the more sophisticated phone scams I've ever heard. I think a lot of people at UCSB have had a similar type scam. I saw the email going around warning foreign students, but they would call pretending to be from the government, and they would look up a bunch of background information on these people, and they would actually like tell them that you get deported from the country if you don't do all these things. So they're getting the urgency. They had really nice fake numbers, so they had legitimacy. They sort of checked all the boxes. They're very confident, like, no, this is a real thing. They had perfect American accents. It wasn't a robot saying beep, bop, boop, this is the IRS. So people get very sophisticated and they're targeting large sums of money. So, it has to kind of be worth their while, but there are some wild schemes out there. And to this end, I mean, the internet knows you. So if you're going to target someone or you're targeted by any sort of social engineering scheme, I went to this website spoko.com. There's a bunch of them like this. You can just type in your name and it pulls up that I reside in Santa Barbara. I used to live in Cambridge, used to live in Chapel Hill, Goleta, and Steubenville, Ohio. It has my mom's middle name. Apparently I have an alias, Chad Spensk. I guess I typoed it once and now I have a cool alias. But then you can pay more money and get everything about me. My phone numbers, my emails, every exact address where we lived at. Stuff's creepy. When it comes to social engineering, it's good to know this stuff, right? I want to call someone and have urgency. So if they called me and said, hey, we're here with Linda Spensky, she was in a terrible car accident, I would freak. And then I'd be listening and then they could probably get me to pay the money or whatever, right? So this is kind of how this works. Not a great world. But the interesting thing, you're not always the target, right? So we kind of think, at least in my mind, I always think of social engineering. It's like, oh, people are gonna come at me. But you can actually social engineer the people that own my accounts, right? So like everything about me is in these data centers that Google owns or the IRS owns, or pick your favorite data warehouse. And they're also susceptible. So I could call them and say that I'm you, like, oh my God, and do the same thing. This is urgent. I forgot my password for my bank account. Can you please reset it for me? So you might be totally out of the loop, but this stuff can still affect you. A really popular one today, it's called SIM jacking, at least popular in my world where a lot of people want to know about it. So the idea behind SIM jacking is I'm just going to outright steal your phone number. So forget spoofing your phone number, because spoofing can only be outbound calls. I want to accept inbound calls. I want to check your voicemail. I want to be you. So the way this works is typically you will target the cell phone provider. So I'll call Verizon, or I just walk into the store and say like, hey, I want to buy this new iPhone. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot my password. Everyone does that. You feel me? Empathize. But I really want this new iPhone. I dropped my old one in the ocean. Like I was surfing, it's gone. I need this new iPhone today. I have a really important interview that's coming up. Please help me. And then people are generally nice. They'll help you. Oh, okay, we'll just transfer that number from your old carrier. Bang, you got their number. What can you do with that? So a lot of people are doing it for stealing crypto wallets. So a lot of them do SMS-based authentication. So they send you that dumb code that you have to type in. And then that's hard to get. But if I have your number, easy peasy, right? Oh, I got the code. Here it is. I can check your voicemail, or I can just use your number to manipulate others, right? So say you're, the boss of some big security company or financial institution, and I have an example message over here on the left, texting one of my employees, hey, can you please take down the firewall for 5 minutes? My VPN is broken. And oh, cool, firewall's down. Boom, just revealed your whole company infrastructure because look legitimate, had urgency, all those good things. And if it's coming from a legit number, I think this is somewhat of a novel attack. So a lot of people don't expect this, that why would that not be the person that it says it is? It comes with the little lock and all that good stuff, right? So this, I think, is where social engineering gets the most interesting. So we've talked a lot about, online attacks, but in fact, a lot of my friends that do this professionally, hack into companies and sort of test their security, walking in the front door is almost always the easiest thing to do. And again, it kind of leads back to this thing of you trust people more when you see them in person, right? It's very easy to lie and be nasty online. Just go look at YouTube comments at how easy it is to be nasty, but no one walks around in McDonald's spewing that kind of stuff. People tend to be more real in person. So if someone shows up, looks legit, walks in the front door, you meet them, you shake their hand, they smile, much easier to get the job done. So a couple tips for when you're a social engineer place by walking in the front door. First, get a fake email on your phone. I heard this from one of the people I know that is a pro at social engineering. They do penetration testing. And he's yeah. He's if you have an email, no one questions. He's put on an iPad. He's oh my God, look right here. The CEO says, I have a meeting at 10 a.m. It's 9:59. I don't want to be late for this meeting. We don't want to make him upset. He's no one questions an email on a phone. And in fact, this came up recently. We were at a conference. We actually had a legitimate email, but that exact interaction came up and just made me chuckle. We're no, look, we have an email. Who's the email from? Right here, from Joanne. She said this will be done. And then they jump all over. Oh my God, she's an important person. Let me get it done. Dress appropriately, maybe bring tools and a clipboard. Tend to notice that like maintenance men, one, you don't see them that often, and two, they tend to be doing something very important, like the air conditioning's broken and you're freezing. It's like, yeah, please come in, do what you need to do, and steal some data while you're at it. And this is not always illegal. So like I said previously, there's this thing called penetration testing. Not what you think for those of you with dirty minds. What happens here is that you'll pay this company, Rapid7 is one of the biggest ones, but a lot of similar companies, and they'll actually test your security, like physical security, digital security, and just see if they can steal data or what kind of damage they could do to your company. This talk is one of the funniest ones I've seen in this realm. So there's a conference every year called DEF CON where all the world's hackers gather and we share notes and compete in hacking competitions and stuff. But this one's called Steal Everything, Kill Everyone, Cause Total Financial Ruin, or How I Walk In and Misbehaved. So this guy is a professional pen tester and just goes through some of his stories, and they're an absolute riot of like how he's stolen cars. One of them, he said he can eventually convince all the employees to help him load up all of their laptops into his van. So he's like, not only did I steal the data, but I had help. I just like, hey, everybody, we got to recall laptops. And people were helping him carry servers out to his car and stuff. So people do this every day. They're very good at it. I have links later for this talk, but the guy's a riot, and the stories are pretty insane. And practice makes perfect. So there's actually competitions every year. The social engineering CTF. How strong is your schmooze? So you too can get great at this. And just to kind of round it off with some of the actual attacks we talked about earlier, this is really common with physical access. So it's pretty tough. Some of these locks have these the card readers on them, and you can steal an employee's card, you can clone them, but it's way easier to just walk right in behind them, look confident. Hey, I work here, you work here. I just started last week. I'm excited to meet new people. Do your research, maybe even know their name. You're in. Okay. So I think all of these talks, and in my mind, like a lot of cybersecurity, everything's like, you're doomed, the world is over, the sky is falling, shut your computer off, go hide under a rock. I don't think we're doomed. I do think the training can only do so much. So you can only go through so many things, but like if you're getting spearphished by a sophisticated person, you're probably in deep doo-doo. Like regardless of how hard you try, they're gonna know you, they're gonna get what they want. And it's frustrating. Like every time I go through training, I feel like it's back to like my mom yelling at me, like, Mom, I know I wasn't supposed to click the link, but it looked really compelling. So like that whole interaction is kind of a bummer for people on both sides. So can technology save us? This has kind of been my ethos, that like I would like to get away from the training and just have technology that makes it harder to do these kind of attacks. So in my mind, it ultimately boils down to secure, efficient authentication. So my company name is Allthenticate for exactly that reason. The hard problem I think we're facing as a society is just proving that you are you, right? So you're a unique and special butterfly, we've always heard as a kid, but like, why doesn't that correlate into the digital world? Like if I'm so unique and special, why can this guy just spoof my phone number and pretend to be me on Twitter and all this stuff? Like I don't feel unique and special. So what am I doing about it? What is the cybersecurity folks doing about it? For my company explicitly, we're trying to create a really awesome access control system. So you can actually add access control to all the rooms that you want really easily, and do this in a secure way that actually verifies the person. So you can't just clone my key or clone my card. We want to create a phishing proof authentication product. So there's a ton of these out there. I know UCSB just got on board with Duo. So that helps quite a bit with phishing. But again, if you do the SIM jacking thing, there is some issues with some of these products. But in general, if you get away from the password and use a physical token, you can help a lot with the phishing problem. And then just generally a privacy preserving authentication ecosystem. So my data is not just everywhere as it is now. I mean, I don't think I'll ever remove my data. Once it's on the internet, it's always there, just like the pictures in college. But at least for the next generation, hopefully we can do better. To give you a little quick peek. So our future of access control, we want to use a smartphone. Again, really hard to clone. There's no employee ID, and we can use the biometrics on the phone. To eliminate phishing, the general gist of all of these applications is that when you go to log into a website, it's going to prompt your phone, and your phone has to be there. There's no SIM jacking attack or anything that's going to help, because there's actually a physical key on the phone that has to be used. And then privacy preserving authentication. This is a more lofty goal that I think, as a world, I would like to see us get to, where you kind of have this ecosystem where it goes back to just like your data being shared with just your friends, family, and people you trust, your doctor, not every doctor, that kind of thing. So kind of the future I'm pushing towards, I think, we can get there for sure. And until then, we got to just, avoid the temptation, and I guess don't click the links and be mean sometimes. Like, hey, no, you really aren't allowed in this door. Although I'm like, personally, I can't do that. I'm too nice of a guy. So please don't tailgate me. So at this point, I'll take any questions. If you could just input your UCSB net ID and password though, before you submit your question, that would be great, just so I know who you are. Thank you.
So our first question is from Helen. She says, I've heard the word spoofing used recently. I got 2 emails about my PayPal invoice. They send you a payment, received email right away, not days later. To report this to PayPal, you send it on their spoof address.
I'm trying to okay, I have it up now. I see. I'm not sure how to answer the question. So there are a lot of places where, yeah, people are trying to phish you or to, social engineer you. They do have hotlines that you send the email to. I know when I was working, doing like government stuff and security, that was like the immediate thing, like fishy email, you send it there because they're going to look into the campaign. Yeah, I agree that you can spoof anything. I mean, everything digital is spoofable, unfortunately, because it's just bits floating around in the wire versus, your physical person.
So Carrie says, I love the calls that come in displaying my own name.
Yeah, that stuff's amazing. They at least made that a crime. So spoofing caller ID is officially a crime, but yeah, you can spoof whatever you want on caller ID. It's kind of wild. All of my like spam comes from my home area code, and I haven't lived in Ohio since I was 17. So I do kind of like it. It auto filters them because they're trying to be a little too clever.
So Alex asked, will you be writing a book at some point that covers these topics and issues?
That's a great question. I think at some point in my life, I'll write a book. I just got a PhD though, which meant I wrote a lot of papers and publications and academic writing. But yeah, at some point it'd be very nice to write a fun book where I don't have to go through, peer review process of just like interesting stories and life experiences. But I don't think anytime soon. I'm pretty busy right now.
So another question that popped up was website cookies. How are we supposed to deal with that at work?
Okay, website cookies are interesting. So this has to do more with your data privacy than phishing attacks. So what a website cookie is, say you log into authenticate.com, and I just want to keep track that you're logged in, right? So you're going to go to the login page, and then presumably once you log in, you're going to browse to a different page. So when you go to that other page, I need to give you something that says, hey, you logged in, keep this. And every time you want to view a page, give me this back so I know who you are, right? So that's effectively what the cookie is. And you can store all sorts of information in a cookie, literally anything you want. But typically you'll put an authentication token in there. So it's a signed message from me that you can't spoof that I gave you. So you give it back to me and I say, oh yeah, this is still Chad. And then I go to the next page and then the website will say, oh, I can't show you this page unless you're authenticated. Let me see that token and your cookie. Oh yeah, that's you. You have access to this. And then from that, they can infer, which bank account to show you and all that stuff. The issue that comes up there is that you can actually steal those cookies. They call this like credential reuse attacks. So you log in, I somehow get access to it, and I can steal your cookie. And then they can track you across websites with this. You can either like lock the cookie down for one domain or have it across all websites. So yeah, the issue with having a lot of cookies is that you came to authenticate.com, I gave you a cookie, and then you went to Facebook and they can see the same cookie. If you don't set up the permissions, and they say, oh, okay, I know that a lot of our users also go to authenticate.com, and then, let your imagination run wild. That probably happens, whatever you're thinking.
So our next question is, if we're having one conversation with low-tech friends and family about social engineering, what topic would you recommend?
That's an interesting one. I mean, I think the phishing one is still like the most likely attack vector, because again, anyone can do it. It's really cheap. It's really low cost. So I think, until we get to the point where all these passwordless technologies are just truly seamless and easy to use, when people complain, you could just, hopefully console them that like, hey, the future, the new stuff's coming. It's right around the corner. I mean, we actually are building it here. So if you're interested in how to do that, I'm happy to talk for, probably days or years, as much as you want to know on how to build it better. But, just console them like, yeah, whatever, answer the prompt on your phone. It's a good thing. It means that, the hospital's not going to get ransomware. So that's probably the best one. The most interesting one though, like, I can try and dump these links maybe of good links, but that one guy's talk on walking into places is pretty ridiculous. Then there's a book, Ghost in the Wires, for those that are really want to nerd out. Kevin Mitnick was the first ever hacker on the FBI most wanted list, and he wrote about all of his, almost all social engineering. It's amazing.
So next question is, same question, one message to send to low-tech coworkers. What topic would you recommend? Particularly those who work in a healthcare environment.
I think that's the one I just answered. So was there one I missed?
Oh, okay. So Krista asked, do you have any age-appropriate cybersecurity resources that can be shared with a tween or a teen new to cell phone usage? You've successfully convinced me that the younger kids in my life will soon be targets and would love to educate them on how to identify it or handle it.
That one's interesting. I actually don't know resources, but the interesting thing there, they're not even just targeted by malicious people. They're actually targeted by companies. I remember seeing there was some kid playing like Sonic the Hedgehog game on his iPhone that ran up like a $10,000 cell phone bill buying gems or something. So they're not like, these aren't even just targeted by like cyber criminals, right? Like companies realize how much money is to be made from this demographic, and that it's on a phone. It's so easy. Oh my God, I just click Face ID. Like I didn't spend money. At that point, you don't really, have the concept of money down. Unfortunately, I don't have any like resources on hand of like how, like what would be a good convincing argument of why this stuff is bad. I can try to think of some, like I said, like some of these talks some other folks have given where they talk about their personal experiences in doing this, and how they do this for a living, I think would be an interesting place, but I unfortunately don't have any offhand.
So our next question is, what was your PhD topic?
Yeah, my PhD topic was mostly focused on embedded systems. So my passion for authentication and a lot of these hacking things came first from, being a hacker. And that's just sort of been around on the side, that I think, as an industry, as a society, we have to do better or we're in really bad shape. So that's always been my passion, which has become my company. But sort of the latest trend in computing is like we have these embedded systems everywhere. We have, smart TVs, smart light switches, smart light bulbs, cars, all these little computers. And for me, as a security person, that kind of freaks me out, because if I start hacking these things, I can start doing real harm, right? I can crash your car. I can catch things on fire if I'm hacking HVAC systems or security systems and all this crazy stuff. So my PhD was focused on how to build the most secure embedded systems on Earth and build them in a way that even if they're hacked, yeah, you can't do the bad things to the physical world.
So Brittany asked, could you share the most interesting attack that you've seen?
Oh, that one's tough. The most interesting attack that I've seen in person. So there, I don't want to spill the beans. I have like a talk I'm giving in 2 weeks called Hilarious Hacks. So I'm going to go over some of the funniest ones. So the one that I think was the least sophisticated, but kind of the most wild as far as the reaction. I'll tell the story in more detail the next talk, but we were at DEF CON, that conference I was talking about, and we wanted to get faster internet because their Wi-Fi was slow. So one of the guys on our team actually took apart their router, and there's a root password on there that was easy to guess. Or I think there was no password, but then we found this other Wi-Fi network on there. We're like, oh, it's amazing. We're all connected. It's crazy fast. And then like the head of Hara's like comes barging in the room. Like, what is going on here? You guys are on our corporate network. Like, what are you doing? What are you up to? And we're, just browsing the internet and using faster internet. I think that one's, the fact that was like, we were all there in the room was kind of fascinating, but I also used to work for the government. So I've seen some wild stuff that I unfortunately can't talk about.
All right. So Nicole says, I received a call that was spoofing my exact number. I didn't answer.
Probably a good move. Could be interesting though.
Gordon asks, can use of a VPN in settings do anything to reduce our identification or exposure to phishing, etc., in our personal computing smartphones?
Yes, it can. So the way that you get that little lock to show up there is you register your domain with a certificate authority. So there are some foreign countries that are known for compromising the certificate authorities or only letting you access the ones in their country that they control. And they can actually like man in the middle. Like Google has been pretty public about this. I think recently I saw that they're mailing people hardware tokens because they believe the Russian government is trying to intercept their email. So if you're on a VPN, say you VPN out of UCSB, for example, I use that VPN a lot when I was a student there, especially when I was studying abroad. That makes your traffic look like it's coming from UCSB and UCSB's infrastructure, which we all generally believe to be trusted, versus you're totally deep in the weeds of someone else's internet, right? They can change whatever they want. They can make google.com to point to wherever, they can make bankofamerica.com point to whenever, and they can sign the proper certs and things. So if you're nervous of another government, certainly helps. For public Wi-Fi and stuff, it also helps. These attacks are highly sophisticated. Like the likelihood that someone at a Starbucks is gonna pull off a really sophisticated attack, get the little lock with the proper name. But yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt to have a VPN.
So on asked, based on the cookie explanation, does that mean navigating onto a phishing website would allow them to steal your cookies?
It generally does not. So the cookies are tied to the domain specifically, or like a wildcard. So like anything Google. So when you log into Google, anything .google.com, you're good for. But there are attacks called cross-site scripting attacks. And that is a goal of these attacks, is to get your browser or you to like dump info into a website that shouldn't be there. So like dump that cookie info. And there's a bunch of weird, sophisticated things you can do, iframes historically. But JavaScript has some other things that can break that barrier. But they generally, why is the name evading me right now? They call it single origin policy. So the cookie is only going to go to websites that have the same origin that you got it from, which is generally the top level domain. So they cannot steal your attack, your credentials outright on a phishing attack or a phishing website without some sophisticated exploit.
So Andrea says, not a question, but there are several excellent episodes of the Darknet Diaries podcast on social engineering, and they're not too technical. And she says that some highlight episodes on social engineering and physical pen testing include number 6, number 21, number 35, and number 40.
I still need to check that podcast out. I've heard about it from quite a few friends. They said that I would nerd out on it, but unfortunately for me, my time is quite stressed trying to, save the world and fix these attacks from a technical perspective. pretty taxed right now.
So our next question is, I got an email from my own email address. What should I do?
That's impressive. I think you could look at the reply to address. So the way email works, you can sort of kind of dictate whatever you want. Historically, it was totally unauthenticated. You could have whatever you want in the to address and the from address and all of that. If you look at the reply to, like if you click the little down arrow, like I showed you, I think in one of these slides. So there's like this one. So the little down arrow will give you all of this information. I would look at that to see where it actually came from. If they put the reply to as your own address and you respond, it will come to you, which I don't know, it's kind of fun, but yeah, just like I was talking about with the phone system, emails historically are very, very, very easy to spoof. Like there's even a program in Linux called like SendMail. You can type like a command line thing and they're like, poop, fire off an email with whatever you want it to say, which, yeah, the internet kind of got bigger than people thought. And now we're at the point where we're trying to figure out what to do.
So our next question is, should we avoid using Face ID?
No, Face ID is great. It solves one portion of this problem. So stealing the credential for Face ID, it's actually stored on your phone, at least as far as Apple tells us. So that does actually reduce the attack that if you're going to log into something and you use your face, the physical phone has to be there and at least something that accurately mirrors your face. So that actually does reduce the opportunity to get phished quite a bit.
So Scott asked, what do you see for future areas of study for someone who wants to pursue a cybersecurity certification or degree?
There's a lot. I mean, some of them I think are kind of like, so really hot right now is obviously crypto. So if you want to be in like the hot market, crypto is huge. The authentication problem and like this sort of social engineering and spoofing problem becomes really big in that realm as well. That's the one I picked, so I'm biased. I really think like the problem we have to get right before we can do anything else is authentication. Like if I can't reliably prove that I'm me without getting compromised, all of these cool systems we build are just going to fall flat on their face. And we're kind of like, it's exploding at this point where everyone has over 100 passwords. And now, your smartphone's unlocking your Tesla and all this stuff. So in my mind, until we nail that problem and really figure that one out, we can't really advance forward as a society because we're still going to be fumbling around with these, trivial attacks that are, whatever great thing I have can be gone like that if I get attacked.
So our next question is from Alex and is, what is your opinion of password management platforms such as LastPass? Do you have faith that these platforms are secure and provide solid security methods in place to prevent exploitation?
Yeah, so I'll go into that one in a lot more detail next week. I'm giving the state of authentication, just sort of talking about all these different things. I use the built-in one in Chrome. I personally have never found a reason to pay for one. They're reasonable band-aids, right? We needed something in the interim. There's no way we're remembering 150 passwords. So until we get to some highly usable, really secure solution, something is needed. So I think these definitely, they fill that gap. They're not the solution by any means. Like if we stopped there, we'd be in trouble because now, all of your credentials are now this one thing that's stored on a bunch of different computers. Like LastPass is on my phone, it's on my laptop, it's on my work machine, all these things. So it's not the greatest answer, but it's definitely good. And like I said, when we phished people, autocomplete didn't work. Does bring up another exploit avenue that hackers have done historically. They've mostly figured out by now, but you used to be able to just like have a password prompt and something that looked like the page enough, and it would just type the password in automatically. So that used to be a really great way to phish people. They don't have to type anything in. They go there, auto completes. Your JavaScript reads what their keyboard auto completed and sends it to you. Poof, they're gone like that. So yeah, the fact that it's a band-aid solution, that kind of stuff is always going to be, possible that you could get it to type the stuff into the wrong window.
So our next question is, do you think more people should register their email address with a certificate of authenticity?
Yeah, but no. So they try to do this in like way back called pretty good privacy. So a lot of people in my community still use this. So you can send signed encrypted emails. So you actually had end-to-end security. So you're sending through Gmail, Gmail can't read my email, and you get it guaranteed. And then there was one of the most famous usability papers published in our field called Why Johnny Can Encrypt. And it really goes through, the usability is a nightmare. Like, even I've worked at large organizations where they have all the email signing set up, and even then you get to these crazy instances where someone sends you an encrypted email, but you don't have their key, and then you can't read it. And it's a really subtle, hard thing to do well. So doing it now in the current ecosystem, I think you'll kind of be lost in the noise. As a corporation, like, you have to, right? So your emails don't go to spam, that kind of stuff. Like, we make sure that all of our emails are signed, and sometimes they still get targeted as spam. Got an internal email to a coworker get flagged as spam. They said it looked suspicious because we have .net and .com. So yeah, I mean, as an enterprise, I think you have to. As an individual, I don't think people will notice.
So our next question is, I feel like I spend a large portion of my day authenticating on my phone. Does the future, as you see it, involve less of this or more?
So the future that I'm trying to create involves almost none of that. So our goal is that you will almost never need to interact with your phone unless something suspicious or very high security is coming up. So, like, the way that we have it work in our office, our doors unlock automatically when we walk up to them, as long as it's working hours. If it's on a weekend, you got to show biometric. Our laptops just unlock when we, click enter, and we can log into websites pretty seamlessly, as long as everything seems normal. And then eventually we want to put a lot of like nice machine learning in there that kind of continuously detects, like, hey, is this Chad? Is he still doing honest things? Is everything still normal? And then only ever prompt you when something, devious looking pops up, kind of like how banks now alert you to fraud. It'd be very similar. So if we do a good job and other people have similar ideas to us, I think the future has almost none of that.
So I think that was actually our last question. So I want to say thank you so much for coming out today, everyone, and thank you so much to Chad. So if you guys enjoyed hearing from Chad today, make sure to check out that event calendar that was sent again out through the chat. And remember to register for the sessions because he's going to be here doing a variety of great hacking related topics every Tuesday at noon. And be sure to look forward to a great talk from him on Thursday, October 19th at 12 p.m. to hear all about the state of authentication, which is really his area of expertise. So it's bound to be a fantastic session. And all the registration links for each event can be found at that website that I just dropped in the chat. And don't forget to follow at UCSB InfoSec on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and or Instagram. And you can find the most up-to-date info there about the events that we're hosting this month. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all at the next session. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everyone.